Dear learner, welcome to this course where we are dealing with the understanding competition law, theory and practice. I am your instructor and we are dealing this course in particular 6th module, and today we will take up the 4th session of this particular module, and today's session is based on the tying, bundling and leveraging, that is section 4.2d and section 4.2e. So before going in continuing detail of this particular session, I just to remind the previous lecture what we have did, and if you remember in last class we have discussed the practice resulting in denial of market access. While discussing the parameters or the activities which comes within the meaning of abusive activity under the assessment of any dominant positions for the purpose of whether that dominance position is abusing its dominancy strength or not, there are certain parameter which is in section 4.2 A, B, C, D and E, and we have already discussed the A, B, C and the C, 4C, which was we have discussed in last session, and that is related to denial of market access. What is denial of market access? If you remember, we have discussed this denial of market access under section 4.2C of the Competition Act 2002 refers to the practices of the dominant enterprise or group that prevent or restrict competitor from entering or operating effectively in market, thereby harming competition that consumer. The CCI interprets denial of market access as exclusionary conduct by a dominant firm that erects barrier to the competitor's ability to participate in the market. We have also discussed the essential facility doctrine in last session, where we have discussed the essential facility doctrine is not a such doctrine which was that means codified doctrine or which was under the Indian domestic law. Rather, it was the originated from United States in a railway case, and it is further assessed in European Union, and also it was defined under you can say in section 1 subclause 1 of South African jurisdiction. But if you see this principle in Indian context, the context is like it is a doctrine where the principle lies on that require a dominant firm controlling a infrastructure or resources deemed an essential facility, and this is for to grant competitor access on fair and non-discriminatory term when such access is vital for competition in related market. In India, the essential facility doctrine ensures that dominant do not abuse their control over indispensable resources to exclude rivals, thereby promoting consumers' choice, innovations and market fairness. So with this, we have to assess the today's session, that is tying and bundling, and which comes within the meaning of section 4 subclause 2d, and here tying and bundling are two aspects. If you see this particular section 4.2d, that is like by virtue of a position of dominance, when an enterprise or group makes conclusion of contracts subject to acceptance by other parties of supplementary obligations, which by their nature or according to the commercial uses have no connection with such of the contract, would be considered an abuse. And it was basically the observance of the CCI in the case of Faridabad Industry Association versus Messrs Adani Gas Limited in 2012. It is a category of abuse or not? It is an important question. Definitely it is a category of abuse. That's why it is comes within the meaning of the nature of abuse and as given in a parameter of 4.2d. But this particular abuse or category of abuse is considered in, if you see, United and European Union in a number of cases. There was a case like Microsoft Media Player case, where that was a very popular case in this regard, and particularly with this tying and bundling concept, wherein tying of a window media player to Windows was considered an abuse in European Union for dominant position. It was also known as conditional contract. Why conditional contract? Because you are forced to enter into any contract with the condition that you have to obviously entering in one more contract to exclude or to execute the contract for which you are intended. That's why this is called a conditional contract. It is an important to note that the concept of tying has been also referred under section 3. If you remember in section 3 where we have discussed the anti-competitive practices. Under the anti-competitive practices in section 3, when we were discussing the vertical anti-competitive practices, there were some illustrative practices which was included in the vertical anti-competitive practice, and one of the vertical anti-competitive practice was like the tying. If you remember section 3 subclause 4a and what we are discussing today, section 4 subclause 2, in this concept you have to clear that in both section 3 as well as section 4 of the Competition Act, which deals with the tying, the section 3(4)(a), that means in the case of vertical anti-competitive agreement, a specific mention has been made, and the term which was used in that particular context is tying in arrangement, which includes any agreement requiring a purchaser of goods as a condition of such purchase to purchase some other goods. And section 4 of the Act refer to the concept in subclause 2d of section 4 as making conclusion of contract subject to the acceptance by other parties of supplementary obligation, which by their nature or according to commercial uses have no connection with the subject of such contract. While the provision may seem to be similar approach, that is with section 3 and what is we are doing today, that is section 4, the approach is handling these cases are different. Whatever the concept is looking similar, but the approach in both is very much different. And especially in case of tying arrangement, that is under section 3 subclause 4, the analysis is more in detail, as the factor of establishing the appreciable adverse impact on competition has to be satisfied. However, in case of section 4, what we are dealing today, there is no requirement to establish appreciable adverse impact on competition. The popular case in this segment, what if you see, is Sonam Sharma versus Apple Incorporation, and which was decided in 2013 and filed as a case in 2011. In this case, CCI held that tying agreements occur when, through an contractual or technological requirement, a seller conditions the sale or lease of one product or service on the customer's agreement to take a second product on service, and in other words, a firm selling product X and Y makes the purchase of product X conditional to the purchase of product Y. Product X and Y makes purchase X conditional to the product. That means in this case, product Y can only be purchased freely on the market, but product S can be only be purchased of product Y. So, the product that a buyer is required to purchase in order to get product, the buyer actually wants to tie that product with that. The product that buyer want to purchase is called the tying product, and it is price bundling was defined as a strategy whereby a seller bundles together many different goods item for sale and offer the entire bundle at a single price. Now, what we are discussing, the tying and bundling, whether tying and bundling both are the same thing? No, tying is a different thing what we have discussed, and there is a one more segment in this scenario, that is bundling, and bundling is an important aspect for this particular session because what we are dealing with today is as a domestic that is, and the abuse of dominant position is lies on this particular nature of abuse, that is bundling agreement. Bundling involves different, that is, that you may say that offering two or more product or service together as a single package for sale. Imagine you have a fast food restaurant and see they offer a meal deal that includes a burger, fries and a drink for a set price. This is bundling. Instead of buying each item separately, you get them all together in one package. The benefit of you is that you might save money compared to buying each item individually. Another example is when you buy a new smartphone and the seller offers a bundle that includes a phone case, screen protector and headphone at the discounted price. If you buy them together, again this is bundling because you are getting a multiple product together instead of buying them separately. Section 4(2)(d), what we are discussing today, deals with the bundling agreement for this to be applied, and the entity undertaking bundling agreement should have a sufficient market power in market of a dominant product. So, means the bundling agreement are the agreement which comes and cover under section 4(2)(d). Now, one more aspect we have to see, that is leveraging. Leveraging under section 4 subclause 2(e) is a parameter which is in fact in the provided list. It is a last parameter where CCI assess the case of the abusive conduct of the enterprise. If any dominant enterprise in a relevant sector is indulging or practicing an activity which comes within the meaning of abusive, there are certain parameter and leveraging is one of them, at least in the provided list which is given under section 4 subclause 2. It is the last one and it is stated in section 4(2)(e). So, what is leveraging? Leveraging is just taking the advantage, leverage. So, leveraging, the last form of abuse is when a dominant enterprise or group uses its dominant position in relevant market to enter into or product or relevant market. Section 4(2)(e) of Competition Act 2002 prohibit leveraging, which refers to use of market power in one market to gain an unfair advantage is another market. For example, just suppose a company dominated and market that is in a operating system unit. Suppose in market A, a company is dominant in operating system market and uses its market power to promote its own application, that is another software in market B over competitor software. If this could be considered leveraging, as the company is using its dominance in market A to gain the unfair advantage for that another product or software in market B. In the case of Microsoft versus CCI, the CCI investigated the allegation of leveraging against Microsoft Incorporation. The CCI held that Microsoft had abused its dominant position in the market for operating system by bundling its own software with the operating system, thereby leveraging its market power to gain an unfair advantage in the market for application software. So in this case, what CCI observed that if a company or market, in a relevant market, a firm is in a position as per as strength, which is like to influence another, that is dominant position, and if any dominant position enterprise is indulged in such of practice where that enterprise takes advantage of his prestige of the dominant position of in the market, that means taking leverage to enter into an other market, that means to gain the advantage by unfair system, that is called leveraging, and that was the prohibited, and under the European law that is prohibited in US jurisdiction, and again in India it is prohibited under section 4(2)(e), and what we had discussed the case of the Microsoft, and this is an important landmark case regarding the leveraging in relevant market by dominant enterprise. So in terms of section 4(2)(e), the criteria to determine abuse can be that a dominant company leverages its dominant in one market to benefit it is in secondary market. This leveraging has the effect of foreclosure in the secondary market, and behavior of the dominant firm is not objectively justifiable. In terms of this section, there have to be two markets. That means if you see this particular section, the leveraging means taking the advantage of your dominant position in one market for the purpose of entering into any other market. It means for this allegation, you must prove that there are two markets. A market that is relevant market in which firm establishes and makes it dominant position, and other market that is second market in which it wishes to enter or using its advantage or taking the advantage of its strength for entering into the market. Means this leveraging effect of in a foreclosure, that have to be two market, one with enterprise has a dominant position, and second in which it intended to enter or protect. However, both the market must be the relevant market distinct from each other. The Competition Commission Appellate Tribunal, that is COMPAT, in the case of NSC versus CCI and other in para 115 observed that what are the required for the firm to be guilty of breach of 4(2)(e) are as under. That means with this observation, you may say that what are the elements which must be satisfied for section 4(2)(e), or in terms of this you may say that to fulfill the allegation of leveraging, there are certain key elements, and the key elements are that the enterprise has a dominant position in one market. Second, that the enterprise is denying with not only the market in what it is dominant, but with some other market also. And the third, it want to enter into an entirely new market or product the same. So this was the observation of the CCI in this particular case, and by this observation you may say for the purpose of leveraging, to proof of leveraging you must satisfy with the fact that this is about the enterprise which is in dominant position in one market, and that enterprise is dealing not only in the market where it is dominant, but it is wishes or it is wishes to dealing or proposed to dealing in another market where the advantage or taking the advantage or leveraging was alleged against such enterprise, and it want to enter or entirely in a new market or product the same. In same case, what we have discussed is the observation given in para 115. In other para, in 117, it was observed that it is not necessary for the firm for the breach of section 4(2)(e) to be dominant in secondary market. It is enough even if the enterprise wishes to use its strength in market in which it is dominant to enter into or to protect the other, that is second market. The RC, Competition Law Review Committee, you can say, terms this practice as leveraging. Means leveraging involve two separate market and not the abuse in question is not in the market in which the accused party is dominant. And there is a case MCX Stock Exchange Limited versus Nainital Exchange Limited in 2011. The Competition Law Review Committee concurred with the CCI that no associated links are required to establish abuse of dominance. The CLRC also noted that the practice of establishing associated link between market has been criticized by several competitors as well. Ultimately, the CLRC observed as follow in para 6.4. The committee took note of the above and discussed that mandating finding of associated link between market in leveraging may end up restricting the CCI. After analyzing case on leveraging, the committee felt that current language of section 4.2e may help in ensuring that there is no enforcement gap in the finding of leveraging. The observation made by the CCI, and in this regard it was noted that generally associated linkage between the relevant market should exist in cases allying leveraging. However, it was discussed that it may be prudent to allow some flexibility to CCI while determining the scope of leveraging in the Act, and especially considered in the unique nature of market involved in the digital sector. Therefore, it was concluded that the of section 4.2e does not need to be amended, and that means it was observation, and it was the in this regard to the amendment, whether it require any amended or amendment, but it was denied as per the observation made in this particular case. There are one or two more cases which focuses on some practical aspect, what type of leveraging or what type of demand or what type of the allegation has been made for taking the leverage or taking the advantage of its dominant position by one enterprises which is in dominant position. Just see as an example, in the case of Umar Javed versus Google LLC in 2022, the CCI penalized Google by rupees 1,337.74 crore for abusing its dominance in the Android operating system market to strengthen the position in online search and app market. Google mandate pre-installation of its app like Google Search, YouTube via argument with device manufacturer ensuring prominence over competitor. The CCI held that this is a leveraging, and under section 4.2e, as Google's control over Android foreclosed competition in unrelated market like search and video streaming. The ruling ordered Google to allow manufacturer flexibility in app choices, but critics argued that Google's globe influences and modest fine relative to its revenue may limit the decision's long-term impact. And other significant case you may just see, this is an important case of this particular abuse, that is Matrimony.com Limited versus Google LLC, and decided in 2018. Google fined 135.86 crore for leveraging its dominance in online general search to favor its vertical service, that is Google Flight, over competitors like Matrimony.com. By manipulating search result, reduce the viability of viable platform, violating section 4.2e, CCI focuses on algorithm bias which was progressive, but enforcement remains challenging. A Google can tweak algorithm to compile minimally while retaining market control. So this case was underscores the difficult of proving intent and harm in digital leveraging, where practice are often subtle or data driven. So there is one self-assessment case for you for today's session, and the question is, please choose and provide a brief explanation. That means you have to think about this question and you have to analyze about this session what you have discussed today. And the question is, a smartphone manufacturer XYZ Incorporation bundles its own music streaming service with its smartphone, making it difficult for user to uninstall the app. The competitor ABC Music alleges that XYZ Incorporation practice is anti-competitive. Analyze this scenario and determine whether XYZ Incorporation practice constitute, whether it is tying, bundling, or both, or neither tying, neither bundling. You have to think about this. And one other question about the leveraging, you may think about this, where a company, a digital dominance, has a dominant position in market for search engine, and it uses its search engine to promote its own online shopping platform, displaying preferential result and recommendations. A competitor, Online Shopping Incorporation, alleges that the digital dominance practice is anti-competitive. So analyze the scenario and determine whether digital dominance practice constitute leveraging or not, or whether it is the predatory pricing or exclusive agreement. So you have to see this particular session with this assessment of this question, what two questions are there. So for today's session, this is for today, and in next lecture we will discuss the assessment and some case studies. Thank you.